Hello and welcome to episode 89 of the Tea and Possibilities podcast. I'm Nikki and this is a podcast all about knitting, crochet and making all the things here in northwest London. You can find me at hippie_Nikki on Instagram. I am taking an extended break from Instagram. Who even knows when I'm going to go back? However, there are pictures there. There are lovely photographs you might want to go and have a look at. So for nostalgia's sake, I will link that just down below, along with everything else I mention in this episode. Regarding links, where I can, I will be providing non-Ravelry links, and they will be marked very clearly Ravelry and non-Ravelry for those of you who are still unable to use Ravelry. And I feel like I've said that word a lot and now it sounds weird. As always, to kick off, I would like to say a massive welcome to any new viewers. Thank you so much for giving the podcast a shot. I really do appreciate it. And to my returning viewers, thank you so much for coming back for another episode that's kind of on schedule. Don't want to toot my own horn, but it is on schedule. Who knew? While I'm saying thank you, I would love to say a massive thank you to everybody who bought me a coffee / donated money via Ko-fi. That was really, really generous of you. Thank you so much. I really, really do appreciate it. Speaking of Ko-fi, if you do want to buy me a coffee, the link will be just down there along with everything else. Today's tea is in my Le Creuset mug, same as last time. This is the mug that lives downstairs currently. The rest of my mug collection is up in the top of this cupboard because apparently we don't need 20 mugs downstairs. And because done is better than perfect, I just went with what was in the cupboard, including the tea. So it's Earl Grey. I'm sorry it's not anything more snazzy, but we have hydration, and that is the most important thing. That and biscuits. But my mum is currently making a curry, and apparently you're not supposed to ruin your appetite or something. So yeah, in the spirit of done is better than perfect, I did get a haircut, as you can probably tell by the length more than the actual neatness of it, because I didn't style it. But look, I've got like framing around the face. My fringe is not as long as it was, and you know, it kind of, if I blow dried it properly, it would have sat in place properly, but I just wanted to get ready and on camera, so shabby chic for the win. But now that's all the intro done, let's move on to whipped up. Now we have got a faux. Technically it's 3 faux, but it all kind of makes up a set, so I'm kind of calling it one faux. So there is no really like cute way of showing this. So we're gonna start with part 1 of the overall faux. It's so ridiculous. These are the teeny tiny baby mitts by We Knit Together, and I had started these last episode and I finished them pretty quickly. I mean, they are teeny tiny baby mitts knit in double knit yarn, so they don't really take that long to knit up. So those are super cute. Part 2 of the little set is the Barley Hat by Tin Can knits, which the world and her wife has knit, and this is my first time knitting it. And there you go, it's in the same yarn. The yarn is Madeline Tosh Merino DK in Night Bloom, so everything here is the same yarn, so that's why it's a set. It's all matchy. The one thing I will say about this is this kind of panel here, this is meant to be garter stitch. So you've got like the stockinette part of the hat, and then this section here is meant to be like super textured super textured garter stitch. And yeah, I can't do that. I really can't do garter stitch in the round. It just boggles my mind. And I know it's just a case of doing one knit row, one purl row, one knit row, one knit row, one purl row. Knit woe indeed. I know it's very straightforward, but I literally have to have a counter counting my rows so that I know whether I'm on an odd or an even row, so I know whether to knit or purl. And because, as I'd said before, I'm working away for the Marvel can't speak today, doing really well. But as I said before, I'm working my way through the Marvel films, so I was distracted, I'm not gonna lie to you. So I just wasn't keeping account, and in the end I noticed that I was just purling every time, so I just went with it, and this section is just purl and the rest is knit. Next time I do it, and it's a fantastic pattern, so I 100% will be knitting this pattern again. It's really quick and easy baby knit. I will do my very best to make this garter stitch because I think it looks fine. You can see the change in texture. I hope that's picking up. Yeah, it is. But I do think it would be better with the just super texture of garter stitch. So yeah, that was a bit of a fail on my part, not the pattern, but we're calling it a design feature. Last but by no means least, part 3 and completing the set, the finale, you might say, a teeny tiny jumper. We have talked before about my size awareness when it comes to babies because they are never as small as I think they ought to be when they're first born, frankly. But I am not silly enough to think this is going to fit anything except maybe a borrower. However, as I said before, this is for a second baby, and to celebrate their first baby's first Christmas, I made them a little set of family jumpers. So I had to make another one for their new baby. It doesn't currently have an initial on it yet because she hasn't had the baby. I don't know what it's called, so I'm holding on to this. This is the mini Weasley setter. I'm going to leave all of this in because I do not know why I can't speak. This is the mini Weasley sweater ornament by Alison Hansel. I think it was from Charmed Knits is the book, and I just love it. I think this is such a cute little gift for a baby's first Christmas, for a first kind of family Christmas. They become little heirlooms, and I did it in the same yarn as her first little hand knit goodies because I think that's a nice little touch. I think that's really cute. So there we go, little slightly gothy jumper for baby number 2, and this will probably be embroidered. I'm thinking like a creamy yellow or something. I don't actually know what I've got. I probably will hold double some sock yarn because it's got to show up nice and bright. But that is a problem for another day because I don't actually know what initial I'm putting on this baby yet. So there we go. That is a little second baby gift set. The baby is due in, I mean, days at this point. I feel like it's about a week and a half. Very soon. So not in dire need of knitwear just yet, although the weather so far, not the best. Has been very rainy, has been quite cold. My runs have been quite chilly. It's very warm in the sun. But yeah, my runs have been quite chilly. Anyway, so yeah, I'm going to hang on to these little bits until she's had the baby, update this, and probably won't put them in the post actually, because hopefully we will be able to travel and I will be able to go and meet actual baby and hand deliver Goth Baby number 2 set. Now next up should be my crochet cardigan. It's not though, because I didn't do any work on it, because as I said, I really need to sit down and like focus and have how to do this stitch up while also having the pattern up and not be doing anything else. No, I'm watching the Marvel films and I just want to watch them. So no, I haven't done anything on that. I will. I'll get to it. We all know how I am with garments. It took me how long to knit the Gary down? Hopefully it won't take me that long to crochet this cardigan, but I make you no promises. So technically I currently have no whips because I do need to rip out the crochet cardigan and start it again, and I haven't done that yet. But I have made up a little bag for my next project because setup and organisation is all part of the process. Now, what I have here is Lamington Lass. I have wound one of her mini skeins. I think this was Hollyberry. I feel like this was Hollyberry, which is a clue because yes, I am working on a Christmas pair of socks, so I'm going to cast this on tonight and start a lovely pair of socks with a red contrast cuff, heel, toe. Took me a minute, but I got there because I just think that matches the red stripe so perfectly. These are going to be obnoxious, just horribly, horribly obnoxious, and I'm okay with that. This is the Peppermint Bark by Twisted Limone, and the reason I am casting this on as opposed to anything else is because it is pre-wound, and that's just where I am in life. I think most of us are in a pre-wound place in life. I just want to do the fun bit. I don't want to do the part where I have to wind yarn and prepare. Like, this was quite nice because I only had a little skein to wind, find my needles, pop them all in a bag, and then I was quite sleepy, so I just had a sense of accomplishment, like, oh yeah, I've prepared. So that is not on the needles at all, but it will be coming up very soon. Something else that isn't knitting, or crochet for that matter, because this is a knitting and crochet podcast based here in Northwest London, but it's definitely a work in progress, is my advent swap for 2021. I'm sorry, I've just said Christmas regarding 2 projects, but a girl likes to be prepared. So for those of you who don't know, for the last, will this be year 5? So for the past several years, Katie of Inside Number 23 and Amy of Stranded Dye Works and I have been doing an advent yarn swap. I love seeing hand-dyed advent calendars. I think they're absolutely beautiful. And as of a few years ago, I couldn't really justify the cost, so Katie, Amy and I decided to do a swap, and it is genuinely at this point one of the highlights of my Christmas. However, it does take a little bit of prep. And it basically involves taking leftovers from various projects, weighing them out, and then nearer the time just wrapping them up. And I am trying to get ahead this year, partly because I'm trying to be a bit more organised with it, and also partly because one of my friends has taken up crochet and is working on a scrappy crochet blanket, so I have been donating all of my scraps to her. So for example, the Yarn Shop Day socks, the leftovers of that skein went to her for her scrappy blanket. However, in order to give her the scraps, I have to make little balls first. So hang on, there you go, Yarn Shop Day. So it kind of forces me to get on top of this. The way we do it is that I prepare 12 balls for Katie and 12 balls for Amy, and then I receive 12 from Katie and 12 from Amy, which makes 24. Now, I have got, tell you what, let me grab my little basket and I'm going to count this out. 10. So I've only got 14 more to go. So obviously some of the Christmas sock knitting I do this year will end up in here. And some of the other socks I do this year, because it's not just going to be Christmas socks, will end up in there. And then whatever other projects pop up will end up in there. But I am already nearly halfway to having the advent swap ready, which is great news. I just need to label them. Sometimes we don't label them, we're very forgiving. But if I have time, it is a nice little touch. And then all I've got to do is wrap them, which is another really simple thing to do because I got sweetie bags. So I just throw them in and washi tape them shut. And it's just, you can just do it really easily and it makes my life so much better. And so yeah, that's it when it comes to things that I have to show for the past couple of weeks. It's not a lot, it's not a lot. I have found I'm still quite tired. I've probably been getting more tired as the world has been opening up, which I think is due to anxiety around the world opening up. I desperately want it to open up. I desperately want to go back to normal and go out and see people and do all of that good stuff. I'm also terrified. So yeah, I'm quite tired a lot of the time and I just need some really simple projects at the moment, hence kind of putting the crochet cardigan on a back burner and casting on new socks. So I see a lot of socks in our future, guys. I hope that's okay. However, on the bright side, because you know my superpower is absolutely relentless, stubborn optimism. On the bright side, that does mean this will be a very quick and easy episode for me to edit, which is great news, because then it means that I can sit and watch Endgame and cry. Which brings me kind of neatly on to Knit and Natter, because there is going to be one. There is going to be one this week. So let's go right on over and see what I've got to talk about this week. Really lovely comments on my last video when I mentioned that I didn't really know what to talk about because the world being the way it is, it just feels like there's not much to talk about. However, a lot of you were kind enough to say that you would love to hear my thoughts on my Marvel binge and a lot of the fantasy that I have been reading. So I haven't quite finished my Marvel binge. I'm up to Endgame. I watched Infinity War about a week ago and I just haven't got around to watching Endgame because I just don't know if I'm up to it, to be honest. I have watched all of these films, bar a few of them, in the cinema, and most of them I have seen twice or more. So yeah, Endgame, I'm just not ready. But this is the first time I have watched the series in story order, and that basically means starting with Captain America the First Avenger, Captain Marvel, through the Iron Man kind of series, and on and on and on until you get to Infinity War, Endgame, and then Spider-Man Far From Home. I have a little infographic, but they are organised in timeline order on Disney Plus, which is where I'm watching them. So if you are interested to do that, I would recommend it. You're just going to have to Google where the Spidey films sit in the timeline, because they're not on Disney Plus yet, which is a real shame. I have gotten so much out of rewatching these films in story order, so I would heartily recommend it. I think there is a lot more emotional impact. You can really see the development of the character arcs. So yeah, I heartily recommend doing it this way. And I'm going to flag there is a lot wrong with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There is a lot wrong with their lack of diversity when it comes to race, religion, LGBTQIA representation, the way they write women. Not the best, not the best. However, for all its faults, I do really enjoy the films, and I am very, very excited about Phase 4. There's going to be a lot more diversity going forward, and I am really glad to see that. But for now, we are going to be talking about the films that are out now. I'm not going to be touching on WandaVision or Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but I will be talking mostly about my 3 favourite of the films, but I will probably mention other ones, so if you want to avoid spoilers, please do skip out here. So when it comes to choosing my 3 favourite Marvel films, it's really tricky. It changes every day, pretty much. I decided I wouldn't include any of the assembled cast films, Avengers Assemble, Age of Ultron, Infinity War and Endgame, just because they're such huge stories that tend to kind of bring together plot strands that have come up in standalones. To be honest, I'm just trying to make my life easier here. Spoiler alert, none of my top 3 are going to be the Iron Man films because I don't really like him. That being said, I do enjoy the Tony Stark Iron Man character. I just don't have as much love for him as I do other characters, because I just find him so arrogant and so selfish, and his actions have endangered so many people. That being said, I absolutely love his character development and his story arc. I think it's amazing. He's just not my favourite. As well as asking me what my top 3 Marvel films would be, somebody asked me who my favourite characters are, and you can kind of tell by the 3 I'm going to choose. I kind of used that question to help me figure out my 3 favourite films, and we're going to start with my first one, which is, by the way, this is in no particular order at all. Do not ask me to rank these, it was hard enough choosing 3. But my first one is Thor Ragnarok. Thor Ragnarok, I think, is potentially the strongest film in the entire series. I think that Taika Waititi does a beautiful job directing this. I love his work anyway. I think here he did a fantastic balancing act of making it very clearly one of his films, but also very, very much a part of the larger MCU, which I think is a really clever thing to have done. It must have been very difficult. He made it look easy. But this film is fantastic for a number of reasons. Firstly, the aesthetic. Now, the aesthetic of all these films is pretty great because they're comic book films. They're always going to have that colourful, larger-than-life look. I don't know, this was just even more colourful, comic booky, graphic. I just thought it was beautiful to look at. The other thing I love about this film is the soundtrack. It's just amazing. It's funny, it's so funny, but it's also really moving in places because the character development is amazing, because one of my favourite characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is Loki. Yes, the villain who kills a lot of people. I just love him. I think it's probably because he's played by Tom Hiddleston, but I just want to give the man a hug. It's just very beautiful to look at. But yes, I love Loki. I also really like Thor as a character. He is really funny and good and decent, and he's got like a bit of himbo energy he's just great. I love him. But I really enjoy the story arc of Loki, and I think that Thor Ragnarok really just brings it to an absolute beautiful climax. You know, he, at the end, goes back to save the Asgardians, which bleeds then into Infinity War, where he dies trying to stop Thanos, and that is so far from the first Thor film, and I just love it. I love everything about Thor Ragnarok. We've got Valkyrie also, who is a fantastic character, and I really hope we see more of her in Love and Thunder and any future TV series, because she's cool. Next up, another of my favourite characters is Captain America, which I know a lot of people will be like, why? He's so bland. I know, okay? I get it. I get what you're saying. I can't help it. Much as I want to hug Loki, I want to hug Steve. He's having a really rough time, guys, you know? He went through all of this stuff to become Captain America. He met the love of his life, and then he had to sacrifice himself, and then he comes around and he's like, where am I? It's a lot, and I just want to give him a hug. I love him. I love his decency. I love Loki because of his arc through villainy, and for want of a better word, a heroic act. I'm not going to call Loki a hero. I don't think he becomes a hero at the end, but he does die during a heroic act of trying to stop Thanos. Steve is a lot less complicated, and that's kind of why I like him. Steve is refreshingly decent. He is a good guy, and I just really like him as a character. I'm very much Team Cap when it comes to Civil War. However, I don't think Captain America Civil War is a Captain America film, really. It's very driven by his relationship with Bucky, but I see it as more of an ensemble piece because it is the Avengers together at the beginning, falling apart, completely separating by the end. Civil War is a fantastic film. It's one of the ones I really enjoy, but I'm not going to choose it because I'm going to sneakily just put it in the little ensemble cast bucket. Which leaves us with two Captain America films, First Avenger and Winter Soldier. Now, First Avenger, I love First Avenger so much. It's so good. I love, again, the aesthetic is really strong. There's a real vintagey kind of grade to the film, which I appreciate. I think the CGI is done really well on like pre-Serum Steve. I just love it. I think it's a really great watch. I really buy the Steve and Peggy relationship because it is based in a more than physical connection. I really love that. However, I'm going to choose Winter Soldier as my second favourite Marvel pick. And why is that? Because ultimately, you've got kind of a real range in the Captain America trilogy, because First Avenger is quite light-hearted. It's fairly angst-free despite the death of his best friend and the loss of the woman he loves. It doesn't have a fraught energy in the same way that some of the other films do. Civil War, I'm looking at you. But Winter Soldier kind of strikes a similar balance to Thor Ragnarok. Doesn't do it as well as Thor Ragnarok though, because that is just too good. It's quite funny in places. It's got a really strong emotional pull with the relationship between Steve and Bucky, and actually I think there is a lot to be said for the Steve and Natasha, Black Widow, relationship in this film. I loved it. I think they have fantastic chemistry, and I really wish that they had had more time together. It's kind of the reason why I did not understand the Bruce Natasha thing in Age of Ultron, because I was like, Mark Ruffalo, you are a diamond soul. I think you're a great guy. But they just don't have the chemistry that Steve and Natasha had. So I didn't understand that at all. But that's just me. Your opinion may vary. That was just me. But I really enjoy Winter Soldier, so I'm going to put it up there with Thor Ragnarok. Now my third pick. My third pick is going to be the fantastic Black Panther. Now again, as I've said, all of these films, they're based on comic books, they've all got really strong aesthetics, but I think in particular out of the three that I have chosen, Thor Ragnarok and Black Panther have fantastic, really graphic aesthetics, and I keep saying that word and now it sounds wrong. But they have strong looks, and I love it. The reason I chose Black Panther is because it tells a kind of morally shady story. My main reason for loving Black Panther is the really, really strong pillars of a fantastically strong hero in T'Challa, who is the Black Panther, and a brilliant villain in Killmonger. And I just love this. I thought the ending was fantastic because ultimately, even though they're fighting and they have very, very opposing views, you can kind of understand both sides of the story. Killmonger, I think, has a very sympathetic backstory. You know, he is orphaned by T'Challa's father, who kills T'Challa's uncle, which is Killmonger's dad, and he is basically exiled from Wakanda, which is his homeland that he never gets to see. And that is such a striking story, and I think it really makes you understand why he wants to come in and force change upon the Wakandans and open Wakanda up to the wider world. So even when they're fighting, you kind of, you know, you're on T'Challa's side because he's the hero, but you kind of understand Killmonger's point, and it has a lot more emotional pull than if he was just a straight up bad guy, out and out, end of story. So when he dies and T'Challa knows that his uncle, Killmonger's dad, had said to him the sunsets in Wakanda are the most beautiful anywhere in the world, he takes him out to see a Wakandan sunset, and I just think it had, oh, that ending, it gets me. I love it. And also, of course, I can't not mention Chadwick Boseman, who does an absolutely beautiful job as T'Challa. And I think it's so, so sad that he died, and we're not going to get any more Black Panther films starring him beyond Black Panther II. So there we go. Those are my top 3 Marvel films. We have got Thor Ragnarok, Captain America the Winter Soldier, and Black Panther. Absolutely brilliant films. I do think they work best when you watch them as part of the larger timeline. However, I do think you can watch them as standalone films, particularly Black Panther because it is the first Black Panther film. However, watching Civil War would also be great if you wanted to. It sets it up quite nicely. So there you go, that is my little rant about the Marvel films. It was quite a rant, I'm so sorry. I'm really looking forward to June, and I am really looking forward to Loki. And I'm looking forward to Phase 4, people. I'm looking forward to seeing more of the characters I love. I'm also looking forward to seeing more characters in the MCU. Basically what I'm saying is I'm counting down the days to Miss Marvel, because that is going to be so cool. I will probably be talking about some of the fantasy stuff that I've read over the past, I was going to say year, but let's face it, this whole situation has been going on for longer than a year now. Recent past, I'll be talking about those next week. So next week, next episode, let's not get our hopes up that it's going to be a weekly thing. but let's hope for a couple of weeks. So next time, you know, bring along your cup of tea, but also bring along a pen and paper, because I will be recommending books. But that's it for this week. Have a lovely week, stay safe, and I will see you very soon for another cup of tea. Take care, bye.